All right, hey everybody. Am I on?
Yes.
Welcome to our next cycle. And in this cycle, one of our goals was to sort of help you find your way into what we call the parlor and begin to join conversations that are happening and have happened that relate to what you're studying for your inquiry project. And who better to help us with that than Ann Deusch, who works with me at SUNY New Paltz and in the library and is the liaison who's helping both the writing project and the School of Education faculty and students as we do this kind of work all the time. And by the time we're done, hopefully you'll have a better sense of how to begin joining the existing parlor of conversations.
Works. Oh, hey guys, it's Ann. I'm your librarian. I'm actually the liaison for the School of Education, one of two. And I'm just going to read a quick quote for you. It's Burke's Parlor, and I want to just have you think about a frame when I talk about this, which is communities of inquiry. So whenever you hear the word parlor, you can translate that, if you wish, as communities of inquiry. All right. So imagine that you enter a parlor, you come late. When you arrive, others have long preceded you, and they are engaged in heated discussion, a discussion too heated for them to pause and tell you exactly what it is about. In fact, the discussion had already begun long before any of them got there, so that no one present is qualified to retrace for you all the steps that had gone before. You listen for a while until you decide that you have caught the tenor of the argument, then you put in your oar. Someone answers, you answer him, another comes to your defense, another aligns himself against you, to either the embarrassment or gratification of your opponent, depending upon the quality of your ally's assistance. However, the discussion is interminable. The hour grows late, you must depart. And you do depart, with the discussion still vigorously in process. And I would also say, in addition to having that frame of community of inquiry, I would also say discussions instead of discussion, because it's not monolithic.
Hey, you're all familiar with my inquiry question? Here it is. We're going to talk about it a little bit and talk about how we search for scholarly work that will help us in our inquiry.
So anyway, the thing is, all of us begin to develop these inquiry questions. Often they're what happens when questions, and I've had them. I know recently in the spring I've been asking what happens when kids write in out-of-school places. And I went to Ann just to sort of say, beyond Google, how do I get started with this? And I mean, I know how to get to the library website, but after that I'm not really sure. I don't really have a big strategy. So just figured, since you were familiar with Jackie's questions and we have Ann here, it might be cool for us to sort of make that process visible of how you strategize.
So a really good strategy for getting going with a question is just figuring out what are the key concepts, breaking those out, and then brainstorming around them. So in this particular question, I see democratic process, I see curriculum, and probably students, and then sub-concepts under students would be advocates. Educator's going to be tricky in a search, but we might want to keep that.
I guess my question to you, Jackie, is what do you mean by democratic process in the classroom?
Yep.
Voting. Voting and student interest.
For topics like that are researched, or?
Yes.
So student selected topics or student?
Yeah.
So topics. Yep.
Student selected seems like an important word.
And then I sometimes have
Yep.
heard a term like student-driven curriculum.
Right, so that would go under curriculum, student-driven.
So should I
Yeah.
maybe make a list down here?
Anything
So
that makes
student-
sense to you, and that's one thing about concept mapping is that it's a very individual process, so there's not a right way of doing it.
Student-driven curriculum.
And student choice.
the word topic seems important,
Topic,
right?
yep.
And then I have a question kind of along the lines of what Christine asked. When you originally used the word advocates, and you think of the concept student advocates, what are you thinking?
Positioning students as people who can speak to what's important to them or what they think other people should know about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like,
So what we're going to do next is we're going to take our brainstorming, and I also want to point out this is a work in progress, right? So this is the beginning, and as we start into this process, it's going to feed this, and this will feed the process. So this is, in other words, a work in progress. I'm going to take us to databases because what we're really going to talk about is scholarly resources. So we're going to go to the databases. I'm going to start us with, actually, let me show you this in the library page. There is, if you drop down to education, there is a list of databases that will be helpful to you. I'm going to start you with Education Source, which is my favorite kind of starting place with education research. And you'll see we're at an advanced search screen, and I always just suggest thinking of each of those rows as a concept holder, right? So let's take some of our concepts here. I'm going to do student choice for democracy, and protection. Let's see what else we have. I might just start with that and just see what happens. And we have one result, so that's not going to work.
Why wouldn't one result work?
Well, although I'll look at this, it does have student participation in curriculum planning. It might be helpful. One result doesn't work because it just says that what I'm doing is too narrow. So what I'm going to start thinking about is broadening. But before I do that, I'm just going to open up this item record and let's see what it tells us because it does talk about student selection. So student participation in curriculum planning actually is a subject term. So I'm going to use this record to see where it takes us. So if I click on the subject term, now we have 705 results. So it took that subject term and did a search on it. And what you can do here, because you have 705, we have the opposite problem, which
I want to read like 3 of them already.
Do you? Which one? So which one is calling out to you?
The third one, with great control comes great responsibility.
Nice. All right. So, and I know that the instinct is always to go right to full text. I'm going to really encourage people to click on the title to get to the item record. So then you can read the abstract. And you also have more subject terms. So self-efficacy is something that might actually be added to our list.
yeah, that might tie in with what we
That's a good one. So let's say that, just for the sake of moving through this process, let's say this is a really great article. We think it's going to really help us move our knowledge forward. What we can do now is go ahead and look at the PDF full text. And the one thing I just want to point out about databases, if you're not used to using them or if it's been a while, kind of the power tools on databases always live on the periphery. So this is for your search results.
Is that like here, you mean?
Mm-hmm. So you always look around the edges. In this case, you can print this. This is my favorite. You can email it to yourself. And you want to make sure you're pulling your citation just in case you use this. And
We normally do APA.
great. So we're going to grab the APA citation. If I send this to myself, it's going to send me this PDF along with the APA citation.
And that way, if you aren't on the computer anymore, you can go back to the article.
Exactly.
Seems
And
smart. Okay.
And what's nice about that then is that it's yours, right? And I would suggest on your subject line, put something in there that's going to make sense when you're looking through your emails. And then when you start saving things, save them in a folder and save those PDFs with a name that's going to make sense because you want to make this stuff as easily findable as possible once you get it. Okay. You can.
I have a question
yeah.
about that. So if I email myself a link to an article, will I have to log back into the New Paltz Library to access that article again?
So if you send yourself a link, yes, but what I just did is email the full text. So the email
Got
option
it.
is full text. If you're a link person, which some people like, what I would say is make sure you're not grabbing this link because it's your session link. You want to come down here again to the power tools and click permalink and grab this link.
Got it.
And then what you're going to want to do is come here to this mysterious yellow sheet of paper and click on it. And then grab your citation here and copy it and then paste it with that link so you've got your citation.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, one of the things that and I find teachers I have this huge generalization about teachers, but in general, teachers tend to be pretty organized. You just want to kind of keep your stuff together so you can find it.
I remember a long time ago when one of our TCs was teaching us about making digital stories. There's a connection here. And she suggested that we make a desktop folder with all the photos that we were collecting for our digital story. And I'm just wondering if that might not be a good way to go, to make a desktop folder named the name of your project maybe, and maybe a folder within that that's for your articles.
Yes.
Or a Google Doc that links all the, that's how I would do it.
yeah,
I would make a
that's-
Google Doc and just put all the links in there.
That makes, yeah, I like that
I
actually.
think it
better for
depends
me.
on your style.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Google Docs actually has some really cool functionality that we won't go into today, but that might be something we want to look at because organizing this stuff is like half the battle. Being able to find it, right? So Google Docs is an option. There's a software called Mendeley. That's another thing you can use. There are a few different things.
Can we go back now for the?
Yes.
I'm thinking we have 705 citation or potential conversations to join, or how do we get that narrower, as well as kind of you were talking about that dance between what we see here versus what we're beginning to craft and understand about Jackie's thinking.
I don't want to jump ahead of where you're going, but I'm thinking
ahead.
that what's missing from this is the fact that it's an ELA classroom and that it ties into students doing research. I mean, is that relevant?
Right, it is. All of those things are relevant.
Yeah.
So here's the balance also is that I always talk about having a search menu. So each of your concepts is one area of the menu, and it's finding that balance between, you know, it's like when you go to the restaurant, like overeating or undereating, you have to like get it just right. So a lot of this is just, it's strategic, right? You see what happens. So with this, we have that subject term. So we can put in, do you want to try writing or do you want to just try topic selection?
Sure.
Let's see, that seems really narrow to me.
It might end us back where we were before.
It
but
might,
We'll see.
it might. Yeah, see, and now we have two.
Okay. So maybe that is too
So,
narrow. Maybe writing, because it was
let's
for
do
writing and
writing.
research. Maybe that's a.
Now we're at 14.
Assessing and using students' voices to improve your curriculum.
Look at that. Oh, and this is going to be good. I'm like, this is good too because it's fine full text. So let's see again. We're going to open this up. We have more subject terms. Language arts teachers is in there. That might, language arts might be helpful. Also your level. So if you're a high school teacher or middle school, elementary, that might be a way of narrowing. And if this looks interesting, let's just see what happens. A lot of times people get here, they don't see the PDF, and they just feel like, oh, I'm done. I'm just going to move on to the next. But in this case, what I'm going to do is go ahead and click on Find Full Text. And this is great. When you see these blue article links, it means that we most likely have the full text. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the article, and here it is in a different database. And I just want to, when I say the power tools are on the periphery, here again in ProQuest, here's your site, your print, your email, your save, right? The other thing that's here that might be interesting, if this is like a brilliant article and so on topic for you, there's the cited by function here in ProQuest. You might want to see what articles are citing this, right? So you're tracing, exactly, so that's like tracing the parlor conversation forward. And then if you look at the references in this piece, that's gonna help you trace the parlor conversation back in time, from this point in time that this was written.
So, I feel like I'm the number guy here. So we went from 1
Yeah,
to 705,
right.
down to 2, then to 14. What's, I'm thinking Goldilocks now. What's just right? Like, when would we be, like, is that a dumb question? Like,
No, I mean, but you're the numbers guy and I'm the it depends person.
No, I get
so
that.
it depends on the quality of those 14 articles. If they're great articles, that's a really good spot. And once you get those 14, they're going to lead you backwards and forwards. And you're going to keep kind of gathering language and you're going to keep building this out and you're going to kind of keep going back and kind of playing with those words. And then at some point you've got to stop, right? This can't be endless. So if those 14 are productive, that's a really good number. If they're not productive, it's too few and you need to broaden out. Now that I've erased it, I just want to stress that brainstorming and concept mapping is really important. I really, really encourage you all to do that physically on a piece of paper or electronically, digitally. And as you keep working, keep listing words that aren't there anymore. Also, I just want to let you know I'm not going to see you for a while, but I want you to know that you can contact me at any time. My email address and my phone number's up there. You can also just contact the reference desk if you want. If you're not finding me, librarians are here to help you out, so you are not alone in this process.
and I'll just add that you can reach out to Ann easily on the web page that's connected to the Sojourner Truth Library at SUNY New Paltz, or any librarian. So you don't have to physically come here or even call if you don't want to. So where we just left off, first of all, thanks Ann and thanks Jackie for kind of making this process visible. Where we left off is the beginning of finding articles that represent communities of inquiry, people who've been sort of thinking about similar topics and pulling the chair up for conversations. And so this cycle is about you finding people whose work you want to read, the conversations that you want to join. And so where Jackie left off, what she would do next is begin to read some of those articles, and she'll be adding then some thinking from the articles onto her inquiry page. Thanks.